excited to be here and to be part of this wonderful adventure, I guess is what I'll call it. And I'm here to talk to you about the joys of being a late bloomer and how the hand of grace began transforming me from a dysfunctional child, bewildered and fearful adolescent, an adult wondering aimlessly through life, up until about the age of 40, when I started on the yellow brick road to becoming the whole person that I am today. And I'm going to share with you the hurdles, which will make you appreciate why I'm so joyful at what I do today. I had several of them to overcome in the very beginning. The first was something that I'd learned from my mother, that life happens to you, and whatever the obstacle life hands you, it's always somebody else's fault and not yours. The second hurdle was that other people were responsible for my happiness. After all, every time that she was angry or sad, she pointed the blame onto someone else who had caused her to feel that way. Another big hurdle was my birth status. I was a bastard child born out of wedlock. At age 12, my best friend overheard her parents, who were related to my stepfather, talking about me being a bastard child. I had to go home and look it up in the dictionary. At 12 years old, I had no idea what that word meant. My mother had lied to me about who my birth father was. I eventually met him at age 40. I got to know each of my mother's 4 husbands. One of them molested me. Apparently, the family gene was defective because his 22-year-old son and his 16-year-old nephew did the same. Those things really left me with deep wounds, and the issue of what therapists call disassociation, which I dealt with until about age 40. Yoga, meditation, an excellent psychotherapist, and a spiritual director helped to facilitate my healing. Another hurdle I had to overcome was one that's really difficult to admit in amongst so many wonderful women who have told such wonderful stories today, but it was my distrust of women. I was virtually emotionally abandoned by the most important woman in my life, who is my mother, because her life was always about her. And when I was much too young, she made me her confidant, telling me things that I was far too young to hear. I was betrayed in my early 20s by a dear friend, a female, who divulged confidential information about a company executive. The information could have only come from me, or so I thought, had I not realized that she had the combination to the lock on the confidential files. I would have lost my job. I had no time for women who I considered weak and manipulative, because that's how I saw my mother. She always had to have a man in her life, and she poured out all her affection onto them. I've struggled for years to trust and bond with women, so I know there's still a splinter in here somewhere. I virtually loathed women's groups. First of all, I didn't do groups, but to get in a group of women and be an introvert, I often feel like a deer in the headlamps. I knew how women talked about each other behind their backs and undermined the success of other women. I more admired men who I saw as having all the power and making all the decisions. They also made far more money than I did. I had a similar situation to Yvette's, who you heard speak earlier, when I found out that a male colleague was making $15,000 more a year than me, and I was doing the same thing. I virtually got the same sob story that Yvette did. He was married and he had a family to support. While I objected and said that I was the breadwinner and had a child to support, it didn't make any difference. My revenge was sweet. when I left the company to accept a job at a competitor for more money, I took the business I'd brought with me, and they were big accounts. Should have given me the raise. As an introvert, it was a very painful experience to knock on the doors of strangers every day, especially when what was behind those doors were men that I had to call on. They were clients. I suffered from anxiety and panic attacks for many, many years. I look back now and I wonder how I even functioned when the anxiety levels got so high. Unfortunately, a lot of my life is absent, the memories anyway. When you suffer from anxiety and panic attacks, you can't remember much of anything because it's like a blanket or a veil that covers everything. But I didn't let those things stop me. Like my daughter Yvette, who suffered discrimination in a male dominated industry, I too had to live through that and sexual harassment in the transportation industry, where in my company alone, I was one woman and 350 men. I had several extremely embarrassing sexual harassment situations that nearly led me to quit. And back in those days, had I done so for that reason, I would have been blackballed from the industry because I was really only one woman and the rest of them were men, and they didn't appreciate being accused of sexual harassment. So I hung in there because I was the breadwinner and I was raising Yvette alone. The hanging in, however, gained me respect from my male peers. And eventually, when I was leaving the area, the greatest compliment I could have ever wanted came from the president of a prestigious all male transportation organization whose bylaws clearly stated no women. Of course, you couldn't do that today. But when he asked me to apply for membership, I said, no, your bylaws clearly state no women. He said, I will sponsor you and you will get in. But you know what? The best thing that felt so good was the ability to really say the word no and mean it. And I felt good because I didn't need acceptance in that community anymore. So even after he continued to try and cajole me into joining, I said, all you do is you sit around and smoke cigars and drink whiskey. What do I want to, go to meetings in that kind of an atmosphere? So I really tell you all of this so that it can help you appreciate at why I was so overjoyed at finding my yellow brick road, my right livelihood as a journalist, using only the gift that I was born with, the ability to write and communicate well. And I did it without a college degree in journalism. I got hired by one of the most prestigious public relation firms in my area, built my own PR firm, The Right Image, and later became the editor and senior staff writer for a healthy lifestyle magazine called Natural Awakenings. We have 1.5 million readers, and I have been with them for nearly 18 years. I really didn't, I guess what makes my story a little unique was that I didn't find even the first sign pointing me to my yellow brick road until I was age 55. But thanks to the hand of grace, which I really didn't recognize until I had to do a life review of my own adventures on the yellow brick road. My work, my calling, and my way to achieve my purpose and my mission in life has led to create a sense of wholeness within me so that I no longer have to seek outward for acceptance or acknowledgement. I speak to you from my 18 years as a journalist who literally read my way to enlightenment as a result of reading the books that were written by the authors that I was interviewing. You can't interview people like Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Joan Borshenko, Jean Shinoda Boland, Jean Houston, Bruce Lipton, and Greg Braden, which are highly regarded luminaries today, unless you've read their books and you've developed questions that other journalists that are not like the other journalists that have already interviewed them. So it was really the reading of those books that I discovered that enlightenment had little, if anything, to do with learning anything. It was more about forgiving, letting go, and unlearning pretty much everything I had learned up until that point. Like Joan Childs, who mentioned John Bradshaw, I found his work on the inner child. It was one of those valuable breadcrumbs that you find along the yellow brick road, one of those magical companions that you need, where the book opens to exactly what it is that you are in need of at exactly the right time. So the healing of my inner child began in a spiritual movement known as Cursillo. It's a ecumenical movement within the Catholic Church, and it's weekend retreats for men first, and then their wives can go later, because the women are so transformed, they go home and want to transform their husbands. So they have to take the men first. I also practicing yoga and attending classes for the adult children of dysfunctional families, which was then called Adult Children of Alcoholics. That was a tough one. I cried my way through that one, but it was such a relief to find that there were other people. Actually, there were only 5 of us in the room, and we were all women. But it was such a relief to find that there were other people in the world who were suffering the same things that I did for the same reasons. So therapy and hundreds of dollars in self-help books, workshops, and retreats were actually the best investment I think I've ever made in myself. I learned valuable information about duality and the pitfalls of ego from the Vedanta Center in Massachusetts, where I used to drag my daughter to with me for their satsangs. And in those days, she didn't really understand any of it, but at least she went along. I think she absorbed through osmosis. And I'm extremely grateful for her in my life. She grounded me, gave me focus, and a reason to heal and become the best version of myself. Along the way, much of it, my journey, I did share with her. And so I'd like to think that it planted the seeds for her own blossoming and the journey that she is still on today. And now we get to the yellow brick road, where I said I was divinely guided to. So you can guess by now that The Wizard of Oz is my favorite fairy tale. I considered that the cyclone of my dysfunctional life dropped me into the magical land of Oz, where it seems as though serendipity and synchronicity began to happen on a regular basis. After moving to Florida in 1994, I was at a Taste of Collier festival, which is something that is done here for us year-rounders who tolerate all the snowbirds who come here. I heard someone saying to the editor of the Concierge Image, which I had just met, if you ever need someone to write an article for your magazine, call me. I had no idea where that voice came from. I assure you it was not mine. I would never stepped up to volunteer to write for a high-end hospitality magazine that went in all of the high-end hotels here in Southwest Florida. But guess what? As a result of me saying that, the editor called me 2 weeks later and asked me to write my first article on this is even hard to say seashells by the seashore. That invitation was the result of being in the right place at the right time on the yellow brick road. I wrote feature stories for that magazine for 2 years, which landed me practically my first article for Natural Awakenings, which I wrote on a shaman who came here to the Southwest Florida area from Greenland to do a workshop on, it was called Melting the Ice in the Heart of Man, because he felt like if he wasn't able to melt hearts, he couldn't accomplish what he came here to accomplish. So and today I find that that is so true. He was an advocate for the environment, and his melting the heart was really getting people in tune with the fact that we are a part of nature. We are nature. We are not separate from them. So I've been writing for Natural Awakenings for nearly 18 years. And with my writing, I educate readers on, I try to make my articles inspirational and encouraging. But I actually didn't realize that I had a writing style like that until my own editor of 5 years told me that that was why she enjoyed editing my work so much, because she read what I was saying. So I'll back up a little bit and say that for the last 5 years, I've been writing our December features, and I really feel like they're downloads from the universe. And they're not really my ideas. They are the divine, the magical guides in my life, my higher self, speaking to me about the things that people need to learn about, the things that are transformational in people's lives today. And so I'm now putting those together in an ebook so I can share them with others. And now, as president of a 501 organization in Southwest Florida, known the Southwest Florida Reset Center, which is located in Fort Myers, I'm able to lend my voice to be an advocate for the environment in a different way. I can tell you that I resisted that opportunity because I told them when they offered me the position that the only person I was ever in charge of was myself and my daughter, and that for her was 18 years. I wasn't interested in being a leader. I didn't want to feel responsible for something. And the only thing that I ever knew much about in leadership was the abuse of power. So it took a while for me to get to yes, but what I'm feeling now is that as a big fish in a little pond of 5 counties, my voice is lent to things that are dear to me, like the environment, and the rights of nature, the right to clean water. Our children's trust is such an important thing of how we leave, what we leave to a future for our children. So I feel like this is something that women should really be involved in because, we are nature. We're the closest thing to really the creator because of our ability to create life. We aren't separate from nature. We are a part of it. We are it. So it was really good to help with the success of the right to clean water movement in the first county in the US on November the 3rd. So I really never gave it a thought when I was 20, 30, 40, that I would just be reaching my stride at age 73. I was recently interviewed and appeared in a documentary on consciousness. The name of it, if you look it up, it's called The Endless Question. And so I sometimes just got to pinch myself, to make sure that everything is real and that my life is real. But I give a lot of credit to my spiritual journey, really. Without yoga, without my teacher that Yvette and I both share, Amrit Desai, and my beloved Muji, who I listen to almost every day on YouTube, I don't think I would have the wholeness that I feel today. I feel like a whole person, which means I'm really not in need of anything outside of me. Like my daughter always says, she's really great at entertaining herself because she was an only child. So I'm God's only child, I guess, in my eyes. And I really can entertain myself with a book, a TED Talk, Gertrude. Great TED Talks. I learned so much from them. So thank you.